Remember light, love, and the snake's bite. Hi. For those of you who are a fan of astrology, I have this sort of interest in approaching a very delicate situation with as much astrological grace as possible. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't, but there's two names that I'm going to say, Chris and Deborah. They're both two individuals that exist on this planet at the same time as me. So I'm the third component of this. We've got Deborah and Chris and myself. And as I approach them right now and I think about the content that's circulating about them, I just want you to hear it from my perspective first, if it's the first time, or if you have, that they're both very interesting and that they're behaving the way that they're behaving and they're saying the things that they're saying because of something that is, in my mind, beautiful and interesting and confusing and fascinating and has so many different facets to it. So hang with me if you're interested, and we're going to investigate their birth charts. So let's start with Deborah's chart. She has Mercury, which is a planet that rules thinking and communication by some practitioners, in Gemini. That is a great place for it by pretty much anybody's estimation who is an astrologer, because, Gemini is a very communicative, connective, sharing ideas. It's the diurnal, or the kind of the yang masculine side. So it's transmitting messages. And again, since Mercury is said to rule that sign, it's like really good at communicating ideas. The issue is that that planet is in the 12th house, which means it's struggling to really be, out there and seen. It's almost this hidden, sort of elusive, maybe sometimes prone to bad spirits. And pretty much no matter which system you use, there's this sort of, challenging aspect to that. But it's a really good messenger, but it's kind of challenged. And Venus is there to kind of give it a little beauty. And I think when you hear her speak, there's this almost like loving kind of connectiveness that she's trying to achieve. So when you think about just that one facet, we also want to include the third house, because that's said to, rule sending messages. And, she's got the moon in Virgo in the third whole sign house, or it's in the fourth in this other system, which suggests that she's wanting to communicate maybe about ancient things in a very detail-oriented way. So there's all this communicative stuff coming from her. So you'll have to check her out and see if this chart resonates. Now, as we move on to Chris's, again, I just Googled these charts, so they're not all the same, but you can get insights from all these place systems. Let's start where his Mercury's placed. Now, his, depending on which system you're using, is either in the 10th or the 9th, and you can definitely see how, like, sharing ideas and scholarly things is, as a 9th house, kind of a signification. But then in the 10th, you've got his career, and you can also see how it's his career, because, he makes a living by doing this astrology stuff and researching. And he's got Saturn there next to it, which is sort of all about boundaries and restrictions and knowing the rules. And what's the flavor of it? Well, the flavor of it's Scorpio. So he has this sort of, I'm going to go really deep. I'm going to target things all the way. And there's this steadiness to his emotional nature. And what rules over that scorpionic constellation? Well, it's the planet Mars. And where's Mars? Well, look at this. Mars is in the 12th house, again, by pretty much no matter which system you're using. Again, there's probably other house systems that I'm not familiar with, but just from the ones I quickly pulled up. So that same sort of struggling to kind of make itself known, to put itself out there. But what I just want to say is Mars in Capricorn is exalted. And exalted, that doesn't necessarily mean always a good thing, but there's certainly some tenacity and some stick-to-itness that's really agreeable and really beneficial. So when you look at their birth chart, there's a lot of great things that you can say about about their charts, and they both have contributed so much to my own journey. But yeah, you can definitely feel the martialness from Chris, right? And let's just investigate them. Astrology is a very beautiful thing, and to me, that is something that they both have helped me with, because they're both these teachers. So to close this video, I'm gonna play a clip. There's a conclusion that I've come to that's based off of the stars, that's based off of what I'm hearing. We're just gonna really have to look. We're gonna really have to listen.
And personally, I had hoped that this is where we would be headed more in the direction of, by this point, and following what some of those early astrologers were doing in terms of trying to find a way for all of these systems to work, or to have a sort of place for all of them. But instead, you know, I'm gonna have to give this like long lecture where we're like debating the existence of whether one of those systems existed in ancient times.
So if what he's saying, he's going to have to do it, he has to. Is that true?
Which is kind of a waste of time at this point, because it's been thoroughly documented.
So this is the gist of what I've discovered. When I listened to Deborah's lecture,
particularly stirred to give this presentation in view of the quote on the screen. The whole sign house system is the oldest form of house division and remained the preferred method of determining houses for about 1,000 years after its inception. That definition is all over the internet, on many credible authoritative websites, and any new student coming into astrology is obviously going to think, well, everybody's telling me this is a great house system, it's the easiest, it's the best, it's the oldest, and it was preferred for 1,000 years. So, you know, why would you not use it? Let's take a look at the issues.
In my understanding of what she said was that she took issue that it was referred to as the oldest and the most ancient. Like, she's basically trying to come forward and say, hey, like, that's not something that's evidence-based. And yet what I think has happened is there's this sense of almost like, in some ways, even though I think Deborah, my understanding of her is that she likes to view the house system in a particular way. And I happen to think it's an interesting, helpful way of conceptualizing the houses. And I think actually, you know, Chris as well, he has helped put it out there that the house system needs to have its own signification separate from the signs. Both of them have been so helpful in like kind of adding an additional layer of, I think, complexity to this beautiful art form. And they both are on the same team in so many ways. So this is where it gets kind of confusing, because I don't think that the threat is real that Chris is perceiving. I don't actually think it's real. I think that there's like a convenience to using whole sign astrology, which I love, because now, because of whole sign and its simplicity, I can very quickly have really deep conversations, which I have totally thank his podcast for, and, you know, Robert Hand's books, and just these other astrologers, of course. But I'm just so grateful that all of them have offered such insights. But it is sort of, it feels like there's a misunderstanding here that's kind of not helping this art form that I love so much. I'm going to share my birth chart to conclude this, because I'm subject to my own issues. I've got some 12th house stuff going on. My communicative house is more 8th house, which is pretty gnarly as well. So anyways, I hope this is of value and interesting and challenging in the right way. May it be good. May it be good.